the way businesses operate and in the models that they're using to be successful. I'm sure you're familiar with Nokia as the leading company in the production of mobile phones. Well, Nokia have completely lost that lead and are nowhere in mobile phones because they misjudged the way in which technology would advance, and they missed the boat completely with the smartphone. Microsoft pretty much did the same. They didn't see mobile phones coming, they didn't see tablets. They actually, maybe foolishly, have bought Nokia's mobile phone business and are trying to catch up with the technology, but they are so far behind it's difficult to see how they will manage that, particularly given the sort of competition that is now coming from China in the production of mobile phones and from Google in the Android system. Tesco is perhaps a name that you're not familiar with. It's one of the UK's leading supermarkets. And it is going through a profit crisis at the moment because the habits of consumers have changed in the UK. Once upon a time, not so long ago, the typical pattern for grocery shopping in the UK was that you would go to the supermarket once a week, buy all your food for the week, put it in the boot of your car and drive home. And it was a very predictable, stable pattern of the way consumers were buying. And yet over the last few years, there have been massive changes in the way consumers are behaving. They're spreading their shopping around, they're using discount shops, they're using online. And Tesco is in crisis because again, it failed to anticipate the way in which technology would disrupt their market. When I first wrote the title of this course, my thought was to talk in general terms about knowledge workers, but the more I worked on that, the more I realised how hard that was. Not least because in many organisations, everyone is a knowledge worker, whether they're working with tacit knowledge related to the physical production of product or service, or they're working with academic and theoretical skills. Many people are knowledge workers. So in order to get around that and make my life more manageable, what I'm going to talk about is just the legal profession and the way in which technology is affecting that. In London, we have a number of highly successful law firms. The top firms are known as the magic circle because they produce such extraordinary profits. No one is quite sure how they do it. It's almost as if it's pure magic. Actually, the way they do it is that they take on the most complex, large-scale and challenging legal work, whether in mergers and acquisitions or in complex disputes. They hire the best and brightest lawyers. They have a rigorous development and professional development process, and at least being able to perform at the highest level of capability in legal work. And a good number of BPP students work for these firms, and indeed, Distrital is one of the firms that we have a particular relationship with. So these firms make huge profits and very successful, and yet they are not immune from these changes in the turbulent world. And then sitting beneath them are a number of law firms that do slightly less complex, slightly less profitable work, through the whole tier of legal practitioners doing the trivial and the routine. If we consider the challenges that are facing these firms, then first of all, they're facing new competition. Law is going global. So new firms are entering the London market and competing with the established firms. They in turn are trying to figure out how to operate globally because they have client organisations that operate globally and they need to have a presence in the US, in Europe, in Africa, in Asia. And so they need to grow their businesses to match their clients. And they have to make a choice about how they do that. Do they do acquisitions? Do they buy another law firm in Asia? Do they enter into some kind of best friends arrangement and share their clients? They're also having to change the way their business works in terms of the use of technology, where work is done, how work is done, largely because they're under huge pressure on price. Law firms used to get business through a very cozy relationship. The head legal counsel of a large organisation would have a relationship with a partner in the firm, they'd have lunch together, they'd have dinner together, and winning business was based on that relationship. The arrival of professional driving skills has put that relationship completely in jeopardy, and now the expectation is that each firm will have to compete for the right to do a piece of work, will have to provide a competitive price. Which is what happens in every area of business. We use competition to drive value and price, and we expect competition to yield business benefits for us. So the law firms are being exposed to what actually is normal business practice. But that's painful for them because they've gone for a long time never having to sell themselves. So dealing with professional buying and then creating a culture where they have people that recognise and understand how to sell their services is a new departure. And by the way, actually these firms all pretty much act and look the same. It's a lot of people in smart business suits who have law degrees and do clever things with the law, but they look and behave in a very similar way. So it's hard to discriminate about the level of value that they are able to deliver. There's also a particular global threat, which is where lawyers are being trained and developed. So in the UK, we have about 120,000 business lawyers. That sounds like an awful lot. But if you go to India, India is trying to train nearly that number of lawyers every year. And China has huge ambitions for training lawyers to work in China and elsewhere. These are very bright, very capable people. And although legal systems differ around the world, it is quite feasible to move legal work from the UK to India or from the UK to other regions, provided you train the lawyers to understand the particular nuances of a country's legal system. And the unit labour costs are the key thing. An Indian lawyer is considerably cheaper than a lawyer sitting in the City of London. In the last firm that I worked for, it was a consulting firm, and we were offering legal services, and the proposition was very simple. We would provide a management service for complex outsourcing contracts using a team of lawyers that we recruited in India. Not only were they much cheaper, typically, than the firm's own lawyers, but they were much better. And through the process and their understanding of outsourcing, they were able to save money, not just on the cost of the work, but also by doing it better and more effectively than typically the resources doing it that we took on the work from. So if we want to summarise this, then the firms themselves have got to make some strategic choice about how and where they compete, which markets, what type of legal services, which part of the world. They need to figure out how they are able to compete. You win business by being better than the other firm, and they have to find ways to stand out and to win business. And they need to exploit technology much more effectively than they are today. Which, in short, is they do need to do a lot more for a lot less and a lot quicker, rather than like the hamster on the wheel being made to run ever faster. This is an uncomfortable place for these firms because that is not the environment in which they've had to work. So if we look in at the specifics of how technology is changing the way people work, then there's a range of areas, and I'll go through each of them in turn. We divide up the labour, we can automate, we can relocate. And as a consequence of doing that, it is having quite profound effects on the way in which people's careers will unfold in the future. The legal career of the past will not occur in the future because the way of working is so different. So the young lawyers that are leaving our law school at BPP this September to start their training contracts in the big London law firms will see a very different working environment to the ones that their predecessors experienced. So we start with division of labour. If you have someone who is very expert, it makes no sense to have that person doing work that doesn't require that expertise. If they're managing, if they're doing routine analysis or research, or they're doing some other task that doesn't require that expertise, that is a waste of their time and value to the organisation. So give that work to someone else and keep them focused on the work that they do best. And so we hand off the work to other people, and we use technology to enable the communication and the working between the expert and the people that are supporting them. The next thing, of course, is to use technology just to make things go quicker. Whether that's storing and retrieving documents, accessing knowledge, search systems, we can use technology to make things better and faster and easier to do. I'm sure all of you are using technology in your studies, and the ability to find things out now is so very rapid. I taught a class of MBA students the week before last. All of them are very bright graduates about to start a training contract with a London law firm. And all of them sat in my class with their laptops open, taking their notes, and if they didn't understand what I said, they'd Google it. And then they wouldn't ask me a basic question, they'd ask me the follow-on question based on what they'd learned on Google.